Iran's heavy pressure on ships crossing the Strait of Hormuz, putting a dent in the global oil markets. But not every ship is being targeted by the Islamic regime. Our chief correspondent, Jonathan Hunt, has got the latest. He's in our London newsroom for us. Hi, Jonathan.
Hey, John. Commercial traffic through the Strait is down some 95% since the start of the war, but some countries, still considered friends of Iran, or at the very least trading partners, are getting oil and other goods through. China is, perhaps not surprisingly, at the top of that list, but India, Pakistan, Iraq and Malaysia are also coordinating vessel transits, according to Lloyd's of London, the world's largest maritime insurer. European countries and other erstwhile allies of the US, such as Japan, are not on that list, and that leaves them facing a dilemma. As the bombs continue to drop on Iran, they've made clear that, in their words, this is not our war, and they are therefore not willing to take part in any attacks. But they also recognize that without commercial traffic, and oil and gas in particular, flowing through the Strait of Hormuz, their economies face a huge hit. Hence today's statement from a number of European nations, plus Japan, saying, quote, "We call on Iran to cease immediately its threats, laying of mines, drone and missile attacks, and other attempts to block the strait to commercial shipping." And the statement crucially commits the signing nations to action, saying, quote, "We express our readiness to contribute to appropriate efforts to ensure safe passage through the strait." But the word appropriate is clearly doing a lot of work in that sentence. And right now, those European countries and Japan appear to have differing ideas to the US and Israel as to what appropriate might mean. So, John, while this will be welcomed by the White House as a step in the right direction, it seems obvious that there is a long road ahead before there is any actionable plan to try to keep the Strait of Hormuz open for all commercial traffic. John?
Yeah, I think they need to degrade Iran's capability of attacking just a little bit more before they do that.
For sure.
Jonathan Hunt for us. Jonathan, thank you with the latest. Sandra?
All right, John. Meanwhile, top oil executives meeting with the Trump administration in Washington today. It ended a short time ago, the meeting. Let's bring in Mohamed El-Erian, Gramercy Funds Management Chair and professor at Wharton Business School. Good to see you. We have yet to see anything that substantially that came out of that meeting, but it's our understanding that it was a convening of the major oil executives. We can put them up on the screen, the businesses that were involved in these discussions with J.D. Vance and the Energy Secretary. What do you believe are the discussions that would matter right now to bring those oil and gas prices down?
I think what matters is what we hear from the White House, is that we can take some steps at the margin to try to alleviate the negative impact from the war on U.S. citizens, and that is higher gas prices, higher mortgage rates. But there isn't much we can do in terms of the big measures. Already we saw that this will cost possibly $200 billion extra fiscal burden. And we heard very clearly from the Federal Reserve Chair that they're not going to be cutting interest rates anytime soon. In fact, the market no longer prices any cuts this year. So these are all measures at the margin, but they will not, unfortunately, significantly moderate the pressure that we will all feel at the pump and in the mortgage market.
You know, we're looking at the WTI price, the West Texas Intermediate. That's the crude oil price in the bottom of our screen, $97 and change. As we've been saying, you know, as far as oil price shocks are concerned, with this big of a geopolitical threat happening right now, there are many in the industry who are saying that's not as extreme of a jump as one might predict would be happening right now. But the Brent crude prices, which is the benchmark for a lot of the European countries in the Middle East, et cetera, that's at $110 a barrel. And, you know, a very simple, maybe oversimplified observation, Mohammed, is that, well, the countries that are most affected by those sky-high Brent prices are the countries that are least willing to step in and help open the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes, I mean, the WTI being below $100 tells you that we have energy security. We're self-sufficient. So the concern here is just prices. Go to Asia, go to Europe. They're not just worried about the price level, but they're also worried about the availability of energy, be it Brent oil or be it gas. So it's a completely different landscape over there. And already we've seen a number of countries in Asia in particular that are limiting consumption. taking all sorts of measures to try and stop people from consuming oil because they're worried not just about the price, but about the volume. So we benefit in relative terms because of our energy independence, but we're still going to feel the impact on the price.
Such a great point. I want to finish off with President Trump earlier today at the White House, talking about exactly that, how it could have been much worse, and promising that this will be over soon. Listen.
I wanted to put out that fire. And I said, if I do that, oil prices will go up, the economy will go down a little bit. I thought it would be worse, much worse, actually. I thought there was a chance it could be much worse. It's not bad, and it's going to be over with pretty soon.
So the reassurance from the White House is that once this is over, we will see a significant drop in oil and gas prices and inflation overall. Do you buy into that?
It depends when it's over. My main concern, as you know, Sandra, is we've gone from disruptions to energy infrastructure to damage to energy infrastructure. 17% of Qatar's energy infrastructure will not come back online for years. So these are meaningful disruptions that have long-term effects. And as we heard in the previous reporting, the problem is that different parties to this war have different objectives. So while the US can declare victory, it has achieved a lot. We heard that Israel is not there. Israel has different objectives, and Iran certainly is fighting a different war. So it really depends whether this can conclude quickly before we have further damage to infrastructure. That's the key thing to watch.
Always a pleasure to have you on the program, Mohamed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, John.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.